Support for the Couples Council comes from Mercier Wellness and Consulting. Their purpose is to equip you with the right skills for a happy and healthy relationship. Schedule your consultations now. For more information, visit mercierwellness.com. Mercier Wellness and Consulting. Small steps, big changes.
This podcast is not a substitute for therapy. Please consult a licensed professional for your mental health needs. Now on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Couples Council. I'm your host, Dr. Jameson Mercier, and guess who is with me for today's episode?
That would be me, the missus.
That is correct. We've had a lot of fun with our communication series, and I know I told you before that it might have been only a 3-part series, but
It was so good.
Well, yes, and I've been thinking, and there's more to add. And I just couldn't end it without getting some input from the missus. So with today's episode, Talk or Die, we're going to touch on some things. And in addition to touching on those things, what we like to do here is not only give you guys some practical advice and some education, but we also seek to mirror it so that you'll know what it looks like, what it sounds like. And for those of you who, especially for those of you who try to know when when you might need to tweak some things.
So this is going to be an I do, we do, and they do type activity?
Yeah, I guess.
Because you got me a little bit in the dark.
Right. So yeah, Herdyne has no idea. Apart from hearing the episodes, she's got no prep about what we're going to be talking about today. So we'll see how well that goes. So, babe, what I wanted to do with you for this episode is, we've been talking about communication. And over the last, 12, 15 years, we've worked on our communication and continue to work on our communication. And like we tell everyone, we still have our hang-ups every now and then. I'll say something and you'll interpret it one way, or you'll say something and I'll misunderstand
it one way.
Right. So that just goes to tell you guys, miscommunications, mishearings, those things will continue to happen. But what I wanted to ask you in the spirit of our episode today, what do you recall being the longest that we've gone without talking?
Without talking?
Right. So, because today's episode is Talk or Die, with the understanding that when people in relationships don't talk.
Now, we're not one to pass and not say good morning, or we start off our day saying good morning, whether or not we're upset or not.
Right. That's just a basic
us.
Rule in our house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but even if we say good morning, that doesn't necessarily mean we're talking.
Yeah. It's been so long. I'm going to guess 2 days, maybe.
So maybe 2 days. Now, again, this isn't like a pop quiz like I know the answer.
Oh.
Okay.
I just made that up.
Right.
But it's nothing. I don't know. We typically try to find a way to chat it out.
So you don't recall us going like a month or two without talking?
No.
Okay. Neither do I, because that's never happened.
No, I don't even think a week or 3 days.
Well, I don't recall us going a week. Not to say it doesn't happen, but I think we've gone 2 or 3 days, maybe.
Maybe that's a stretch at the third day. That's really a stretch.
Now, when we talk about communicating, right? So for some people, there's zero words being exchanged, right? And that's not talking. That's the silent treatment. As a matter of fact, I call it the death treatment. And maybe later in this season, we'll talk about that. But for some of you guys are experts with that silent treatment.
Yes.
Okay. That silent treatment is death.
Yeah, I don't think, even if there could have been a misunderstanding or a disagreement about something, there's still that level of respect and chatting ability that we do, even if it's on the surface. I'm good. How
Mm-hmm.
you doing?
Right. And so,
How was your day?
well,
And you know those one sentence answers.
right. So for us, that would be not talking.
Okay, that would be our not talking.
That
So
is
is there
our,
layers to this?
well, this is what I'm trying to get people to understand, right? So there are those of them who do the death treatment, the silent treatment, and then there are those who talk but don't talk. All
Mm.
right. So then there are those who report, is what I call. They report, but they don't communicate. And you guys know who you are. Um, the kids are fine. I got dinner. The roof is leaking. That's reporting, not communicating. And even in situations when you are reporting, your relationship is still dying because there's no emotional connection happening.
You got to say that again.
I'm trying to tell you guys, and you need to hear me.
Mm.
Even in situations when you are merely reporting, okay, just reporting about what happened today, your relationship is still on the verge of dying because the emotional connection is not there. For those of you who have children, you understand, you have to talk about the kids, you have to talk about certain things. But if it were not for those things that you must report, you would not communicate at all. And so for us, we try not to get caught up in that. But every now and then, and to be honest, it may be maybe a day, if not hours, and that's only because of work.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we're grateful for work to give us the space
that's needed for reflection.
Yeah, and that's a convenient excuse for a lot of people. All right. So we fight or don't communicate different. Examine how you and yours don't communicate and figure out how to fix it. Second thing I wanted to ask you, what would you say have been some of your reasons for the times, if you can recall, right, the times where you and I did not communicate? What was the cause of that?
Probably hurt that me trying to explain something or have you understand it from my point of view wasn't coming across correctly. And so what I may have said or my response to your answers then flame the situation.
Well,
Add gas to the fire, I should say.
Yeah, but that sounds like you're trying to understand why I probably didn't talk. But think about you and why you didn't talk to me, if you can remember.
Hurt. The bottom root of it. The surface looks like anger.
Yeah.
But if you go deeper to under that anger, it would be hurt.
So I might have said something that hurt you.
Yes.
About anything in particular that jumps to mind?
Not right now.
Okay.
If you gave me, I could have just really went back and
but
nothing right now.
But that's fine though. And here's and it illustrates the point. The second point I want to make here is that some of the things that we decide we're upset about and not going to communicate about, we can't even remember.
That's true.
And in the moment,
I'm Exhibit A.
In the moment, you are like, "Screw you! I'm
fired hot."
You in your mind, you've chopped them up into pieces and getting ready to put them through the meat grinder.
That's true.
And here you are trying to remember, and you can't remember.
But you know what? I'm thinking about it now. You can't get that lost time back.
And we've talked about that in previous episodes. And again, if you want to know what Herdyne's talking about, go back, listen to these episodes, even listen to the whole season, and you'll get some more about that.
Like, you do not get that time back of the anger and the frustration. And I think that has been a big lesson to me in understanding, if you do not get that time back, don't waste it being angry about something you even just said you won't remember.
No, very rarely do we remember the reason for our anger. So choose wisely. Now, next thing I wanted to ask you, when you think about some of the more difficult conversations that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What um, have been some of the hardest ones?
My unresolved trauma or my unresolved grief about money and finances, like the stuff that I haven't totally healed from, has been some of the hardest conversations because I'm not only having to deal with the present, I'm also dealing with the emotional past
Mm.
that you probably just ripped the band-aid off by talking about it. And so now I'm my emotions is fighting the past, and then my emotions is fighting the present, and then in sometimes our conversation is, especially if it's about finances, planning for the future, attacking the future all in once. So
Mm.
talking about finances has never really been easy for me, you know, to the point I can be very transparent and say I really want nothing to do with budgeting and planning. But what I'm learning in this season, that running away, if I'm going to walk the walk of talking the truth about your grief or your heartaches and your pain, I have to talk about it. So just ironically, I'm in this season right now where I am checking my money mindset, and I'm doing the work daily to learn about money and enjoy talking about money. Because I think in our past episodes, when we went through the whole foreclosure, the bankruptcy, all of that mirrored some of my childhood experiences and seeing my parents go through it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And I have to agree with you that I think that I'm generally an easy person to talk to, but when we start talking about money, I have to question myself and say I must be speaking a different language, right? And those are difficult for me for different reasons. And because here on my side, I actually enjoy talking about finances. And when I say I enjoy talking about finances, I enjoy figuring out what my interest payment's going to be. Yes, they tell you, but
Mm-hmm.
I get a kick out of figuring out my daily interest.
Yes, he has a spreadsheet and your goals when it is to talk about finances. And I realized that I need to take the baby steps to get there. And in our communication, since we're talking about communication, I've also had to hold Jameson's hands and say, I can only be a part of our family budgeting for 5 minutes. And then I came back and said, I can do 10 minutes today. Then I came back, oh, I can do 30 minutes. And I think I'm up to 45 minutes to an hour
No, there's been much
before I
improvement.
shut down. But those growths only was able to happen because we were open about how we felt about the situation, how we talked about it. So all of this is really, really good.
Now, the things that, again, this highlights yet another point. Communication issues do not always arise out of problems necessarily. The whole idea, so for Herdyne and I, trying to get our finances tighter,
Mm-hmm.
okay? I mean, we're not, I mean, we're about, I want to say we're average Americans, Haitian Americans when it comes to money, but in my mind, we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of you can relate to that. And so we talk about goals. And so I'm like, all right, we're looking at X. How do we get this tight?
Mm-hmm.
And
Tighter.
tightest, right? And in my mind, Herdyne ought to be just as excited because that's a common goal. But
I want you to realize I'm rolling my eyes right now.
here's the crazy thing: even though we're just as excited about the goal, about the outcome, the process creates conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so when I realized that, I had to say, this is a situation where we don't have necessarily communication problems. It's only showing up in our communication. Like
Mm-hmm.
Herdyne said, the issues stem from things even before I was around,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what I want you guys to take from this piece right here is that don't assume that you and your wife, your husband, your partner, y'all can't communicate because it's tough.
It just may look different.
Don't assume
Mm-hmm.
it's impossible for y'all because it's hard. Okay? If you've been married for longer than a couple seconds, you already know it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't one thing about being married that's not challenging on some level. Okay? And so communication is just one more of those things. And what a lot of people do when it gets hard and challenging, they shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, we had that problem.
Yep.
And for a while, so sticking with the whole finances topic, I had to do that on my own. And then 2 days later, I'm hearing, "What's up with this? What happened here?" And I'm like, well, "Okay, now we're fighting about money because you wasn't in the meeting,
Hmm.
right?" And so when you don't communicate, I don't care what it's about, the relationship starts dying. But guess what? Other areas of the relationship
Yep.
begin to suffer as well.
Yep.
Okay? Other things go downhill real fast.
So next month is going to be our 13th or 14th years of marriage, babe.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we probably started really, probably I can be true, that in the last 2 years, in the last 6 months, I have really matured in this area that life is too short for me to be holding on grudges, or I may have a disagreement with Jameson, but at the end of the night, he's my husband. At the end of the night, I'm going to lay in the bed next to him.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, I love him.
Yeah, we've definitely figured out how to resolve these communication issues
Sooner. And then, even if I'm upset or disappointed about something, I don't give the cold shoulder. I pray about it. Jameson used to say to me, and now I'm using it. He used to say, "I'm going to go pray to Jesus about you on this topic." And it was true. And now I say it to oh, yeah, I'm upset with him right now. I'm going to go pray to Jesus about Jameson on this topic because only he can really change his son.
Yeah, I say, I'm going to go snitch.
So only he can really change his son. And then I pray about it. I may journal about it. And then when I feel like my heart is ready to talk about it by removing the emotions, then I'll sit him down and say, "Babe, we need to talk. Nothing's bad, but this came up for me, and I need to be able to express how I'm feeling."
Mm-hmm. And we talk about this all the time because, so I do that. If something's bugging me today, I'll sit on it maybe for a day or two. And when I say a day or two, I'm not talking about 24, 48 hours straight. I still have to work. I still have to eat. And so it's a day or two because there's a lot of living that happens in between. But then I come back and I say, "Babe, let's talk." And Herdyne used to say to me, "You were sitting on this that long?" And I said, "Listen, what I was doing, first of all, was checking my own emotions about what's happening.
That's so true.
Because I need to make sure I'm actually seeing what I think I'm seeing. Right? I don't want to jump on you about something, and as it turns out, I'm just way off."
Mm-hmm.
And so as we've gotten better doing that, things have greatly improved. Last question I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
So now, as we sit today recording this episode, how do you feel when it comes to approaching difficult or uncomfortable conversations with me?
Very comfortable. I would give it a 10. Why? Because my love is rooted in the grace. My love is rooted in the understanding. My love for you is rooted in the wisdom that we would gain. Because one of the things I have challenged you with, and I'll say this on every episode, I have failed you as a wife if you are the same person you were when we first met. And you have failed me as a husband if I am the same person I was when we first met. And I have to tell you honestly, honey, we're doing very well because the growth is there.
I believe it.
And so I feel there is no hard conversations that we cannot have. That is just my goal and my purpose, is to be willing to sit down and have tough conversations, even if it means me saying, I apologize, I'm wrong, I didn't understand it that way. Because the goal for us is the stretching, not the blame.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the stretching. And so the dialogue and the conversation is what is going to bring the stretching for us.
I will say, even now, as we sit and talk, there are some moments where I know we need to have a difficult conversation, and I pause for a minute. Now, I don't pause because I don't want to have it or I'm afraid to have it. I pause because my goal is to make that conversation as
pleasant and loving.
Well, pleasant, loving, that goes without saying, but I want to maintain that understanding that we have, right? I think it's more of not wanting to regress. Anxiety is evident in all aspects of life, so maybe there's a tinge of anxiety around certain conversations, and I'm stuck now as I try to think of one, so clearly not that big of a deal. But it doesn't mean that we don't necessarily do well when it comes to approaching difficult conversations, because that is the essence of being with someone, which is not avoiding the difficult conversations. I think what I do is I try to time it. I try to make sure, it's not while we're either in the middle of a campaign or while you're getting ready for a trip.
Yeah, it's wise.
And so,
remember that time when there was a fraud on our account? Like, I really don't look at the finances, and you took a couple of days.
Oh.
You took a couple of days.
We want to tell that story?
Yes.
All right. So we had just had one of these slightly difficult conversations
about finances, budgeting, what cards we're not spending on, what these are our budgets for the week, these are the goals that we're going to kill as far as debt, da.
Right. And so in my mind, we're good, we're on the same page. The only thing we didn't do was sign in blood, and and I'm thinking we're good. I'm feeling good about the conversation.
Yes.
Then, we
looking
go
at
about
his
our
spreadsheet.
week. Oh, yeah, no, y'all don't even want to get me started on my Excel sheet. So I'm thinking we're good. And then Herdyne, weekend comes and she goes out with her cousins or girlfriends. I'm not sweating it because we talk.
I went to the Michelle Obama event.
You went to some event, yes. And then the next day, I think I see maybe a couple $100 charge.
$400.
It was $400 on her card. And so I'm like,
because he gets all the notifications. So no, I didn't get this notification.
No, you didn't get it. And I said to myself, $400, and it was for like hair. And I'm like, I know we talked about this. I said, you know what? That's it. We're getting separate accounts. I said to my mind, I said, we are getting separate accounts. Listen, where do I want to bank? I know we're with this bank, but you know what? Are there any black banks out there? I said, no. I said, you know what? But I got to set it up so that it don't seem like I'm being petty. All of this I'm working through my head. And then my brother must have called me, and I was like, oh, yeah, he'll understand. But I didn't tell him exactly what's going on. I was just like salty. And he was like, yo, you good? I'm just like, yeah, man, it's just. And so I spent like 3 weeks prepping, getting ready to say, all right, you pick your account, do your transfers for your direct deposit, because this is clearly not working.
And all this time, you making love to me. I'm cooking for you. You cooking for me.
Oh yeah.
And you're plotting?
Well,
what?
I was planning. I wasn't plotting. I said, there's no way in hell after sitting here that you're going to do this? No way. So then after I had done my homework, right, I said, babe, we need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't
No.
lay.
You didn't say, babe, we need to talk.
What did I say?
I found out that there was fraud on my account. And I said, baby, there was fraud on my account. Why didn't you tell me? And he goes, what are you talking about? Somebody bought $400 worth of hair. I would not spend $400 on hair.
And I'm like, wait a minute.
Yes, you
Wait a
were
minute.
like, wait a minute.
You-
And
you-
then you opened up to
wait
tell
a minute,
me.
wait a minute. You telling me that wasn't you?
No, and I said, I'm calling the credit card company. This doesn't make no sense. How could this happen? And da da da. And I'm going off, and I call the credit card company and go to tell him, thank God God answered my prayers because they refund me that credit of $400 on hair. Who would buy $400 on hair? Just as me talking to my husband, I know people out there do, not judging.
Man, so I'm hearing all of this and I'm just like, oh shit. I'm like, man, I almost stepped in it. And I'm like, girl, you about to be messed up. She's like, what do you mean?
And then he tells me the story. Can you say, holding on to my ribs,
Yeah.
I'm laughing.
No, it was not a laughing matter for me.
I am dying of laughter
You-
because here I am, innocent.
No.
Innocent. And when you're innocent, you don't have to defend because God will be the defender, even when it's your husband plotting against you.
Planning. Man, I was about to say, listen, figure out what account, what bank, what location, because this is
Just like that.
not
After
working.
all these years, you were just going to get rid of me.
No. Or I was going to say, you keep the account. I'm just going to move somewhere else because it wasn't going to work. But then when I hear this, I'm like, damn, you know what? Even though I was in a dark space with it, for me, that's proof why it's good to just kind of take your time.
Yes.
Right? Because if I had already come at her strong and wrong, it would have been a whole different situation.
And mind you, I told you I don't like talking about money, but this is the last time you hear me say that because money is my friend. Finances is my friend, and I will be talking about it.
Let me tell y'all. So we've been laughing at that for a little bit. And that, again, it's easier.
It chuckles me every time.
It's easier. And so if you're in a situation, right, where you're finding it hard to communicate, take a step back, right? As a matter of fact, go back and listen to these last 4 episodes, including this one, and see where you can tweak some things. See where you're making some assumptions. See where you're making some false judgments. Perhaps there are some areas where you can extend some grace. All right? And I'm not talking about like a little daily crumb of grace. I'm talking about some long grace. Because perhaps your spouse just might need it. All right, guys. Listen, this has been our episode, babe. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Thank you for having
for this
me.
one.
You know, did we let the couples council know that I have a brand new podcast called
Go ahead.
Redefining Grief?
Tell them.
And Redefining Grief, I believe that happiness and sadness can coexist. And you not only deal with grief when someone dies, you deal with grief when there's a divorce, health change, moving, all types of situations, that pet loss. All of these situations bring up grief things. And since I was a little girl, I've been dealing with grief. And I love helping people get unstuck so that purposeful living can be attacked and lived. And so that's me. And it's called Redefining Grief.
Yep. And you can find that right next to our podcast, The Couples Council.
Yes.
Anywhere you get your favorite podcasts, be it iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Google Podcasts. You'll find her podcast right there. Doing great, by the way.
Thank you, baby. And you can also visit me at HerdyneMercier.com.
Now, one additional thing I want to mention to you guys. Again, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading and sharing. As we keep saying, sharing is caring. I want to make you guys aware of some plans that we have specifically for our podcast listeners. we're getting ready to launch a community just for you guys, an exclusive community. We have some ideas, but we'd like your input, and we would like it sooner than later. And we want your honest input,
Yes.
okay? You guys are not shy about letting us know about your takes on the podcast and the guests that we have. So we definitely want you to be honest and open about that. What are your thoughts about a community exclusively for you guys, our loyal listeners? What kind of things would you expect or want to see for you in return for listening? Different topics, right? So we need your input because this isn't something that we do for us. This is something that we are doing specifically for you guys. So you could shoot us an email, info@mercierwellness.com. You can check me out over on the social media. I was going to say on the line. You can check us out on social media.
At Dr. Jameson
Dr.
Mercier.
Jameson Mercier. You can find all of me everywhere. Or you can leave a voicemail.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can leave a voicemail if you just simply dial 954-282-1093. Again, that's our brand new voicemail line.
With questions, concerns.
Anything you want to tell us, we're ready to listen.
Now, we do not have to make this clear. We do not check this voicemail every second of the day. That's not a voicemail where you leave 911 emergency information.
No, this is not a voicemail for therapy. No, again, this is a voicemail for the podcast. Listen, if you are looking for some consultation, that's a different number.
Yes.
Okay, that's a 954-372-5892.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but this number here, 954-282-1093, is where you can leave us a voicemail, feedback, ask your questions. And you may even hear your own questions in a future episode.
I love it, honey. I love it.
All right,
I love it. I love it.
Listen, this has been our show. This is Dr. Jameson Mercier with Herdyne Mercier making a special cameo.
Yes.
Thank you for listening and joining us. We look forward to having you for yet another episode of the Couples Council.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Hey everybody! Thank you for listening to our mom and dad. If you like them as much as we do, then click subscribe and leave a comment. But now they have to go because it's family time.
So go practice what you heard, and we'll catch you on the next episode.